Hello, everyone. Happy holidays and welcome to the Surviving UX podcast. I am Meg Kramer and my co-host is Jessamine Edwards. It is the end of the year. Jessamine, tell me what didn't get done this
Oh
year?
my
What were
gosh.
your hopes and dreams that are now officially dashed by reality as the end of the year comes towards
Oh
us?
boy. Well, what's on my to-do list is gonna like basically carry over to next year and probably stay on the to-do list is like revamping my portfolio, which has projects that are 10 years old and
I
need
never want to do that
to go. I
ever,
know,
Jessamine.
I
Never.
know. I think I
But good
keep
for you.
telling
Good for you.
myself, like, do it now when you're not under duress, because the day that you need it, you won't want to do it. You'll be too stressed. But I
Yeah.
have not done it. And the thing that worries me is the project that shipped, it's getting farther in the rearview mirror, and I'm gonna
Mm,
forget, what happened, and I'm gonna
yeah.
forget the details and so I
I've forgotten everything I've done.
yeah,
So
I know.
I don't think I'm hireable anywhere.
I know. I
Well,
I
yeah.
feel
For
the
me, it
same.
has nothing to do with work. One of my goals last year that I set out to do in 2024 was to clean out all the old spices in my house
Oh,
because I
Old
wanted
Spice.
to Old Spice. Project Old Spice.
hmm
It didn't happen. I did not do that. I live in a climate where all of the spices clump up, and so they're basically just like hard as rocks. I have to use a knife to separate them. Like I jam a knife into the spices to get them to break apart. Anyway,
Oh
that
my
didn't happen.
gosh. Well, that sounds like an intense project. Sorry for the audio that just played in the background. I went online and looked up the police and fire scanners in my hometown
Sure, like
because
you do, of
we,
course.
because I am turning into a senior citizen, but
Hmm,
there
hmm.
were all of these sirens earlier, and my husband's like, something's going down. And I was like, how do we figure it out? And it's like, you know how you have police scanners, like people used to buy the boxes and like let it
Uh-huh.
play, but you can do it online. So I tuned in, but I heard nothing. I didn't realize they were still going in
Oh.
the background. So I turned it off. Sorry about that.
Oh. Oh, no worries. I don't think I could even hear it.
Okay, good.
So clearly you're not on Nextdoor. I am not on Nextdoor, but I do feel
Oh,
like
I'm
that is
afraid to get on it.
where, yeah, that is where you would learn, I think,
Okay, I'll ask my
what's
husband to
going
do
on,
it. He dares to wade
right?
into that territory.
I same here. That's how I hear about things that happen on Nextdoor. All right. Well,
Well,
hopefully everything's okay in your
I
neighborhood.
hope so too. I'm like,
And
God,
you
what a
don't get
day.
addicted to police scanners. Even, I mean, that's fine. It's a fine hobby.
Maybe a new hobby. Yeah. So, folks, we are very excited today to introduce our guest. He is a user experience manager, designer, and researcher. He's worked at Bright MLS, Accenture, Oracle, and IBM. He has a master's in UX design from Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA, and a Bachelor of Art and Graphic Design from Cleveland State University. Please welcome to the podcast, Shawn Kenney. Hey, Shawn.
Hey, good afternoon.
How are
Welcome, Sean.
you?
Thanks. Good, good. Interestingly enough, I've been spending a lot of time working on my portfolio and case studies. So
Oh,
Ah.
check a couple of those boxes on your behalf.
good for you. So Sean, we met at the UX Y'all conference in Raleigh this past September. So catch us up with what is new with you since we saw you last.
Yeah. So it was interesting. My position was eliminated right around that time, and
Oh no.
one of my direct reports was actually a volunteer there, and so we were chatting. She's like, "Yeah, come on down for the conference." So
Mm-hmm.
I get
Okay.
breakfast, catch up on office gossip, and I've since I also got to attend a UX conference here in the DC area. I think it
Okay.
was UX Con 24 was like the first year that they ran that. And then
Wow.
I also presented at World Usability Day with the African Ohio UX group. So yeah, I've had a
Nice.
lot more free time to I think kind of get back into the UX community that I
Yeah.
think just really since the start of the pandemic has been, I think a lot of us have been sort of isolated and uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's been good. And then just interviewing. So a lot
Yeah.
of that.
How were the conferences in terms of networking and were there a lot of people looking to hire?
Um, no,
Mm.
not at the level of the UX Y'all conference.
Mm-hmm.
There actually weren't any vendors or at the other two events that I had attended. The one in DC was actually really well. It was just a 1 day, but I think the crowd, they probably had a good 75 to 80 people. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm underestimating, but there was actually a really nice turnout for that one. The World Usability event was a little bit smaller. It was really just kind of more local to that community. And so there was maybe about 25 to 30 people
Mhm.
but yeah, nothing really on the networking front. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
but
I do
So
like these like single day or day and a half formats. How do you feel about them?
I think anything we can do right now is probably good.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Trying to re-engage and try to get some of these events that I kind of took for granted prior to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, I, I think it's really important. I think I've noticed a lot just going on LinkedIn, searching for positions, admin, and checking my feed, and I see a lot of maybe a lot of UX misinformation these days.
Oh, really? Tell
And
us
I
more
think,
about that.
well, just yeah. So I think there's really like a handful of experts that we've sort of looked to over the years, right? I mean, I've been doing this now for about 20 years. I think when we chatted, you're each pretty experienced as well. And so, like the Jacob Nielsen's, the Don Normans, the
Hmm.
Jared Spoles, Susan Weinshanks, like we can probably, Jesse James Garrett's, we can probably name off, 6 or 7 people that have really been kind of like the thought leaders over
Mm-hmm.
the years. But it seems like a lot of what they've shared has now been like we have like people who are just kind of taking that thought and sort of like repackaging it as their own, and it's like getting corrupted, and there's just a lot of maybe bad information going out there.
Hmm. What's some bad
So,
information that
so,
you've heard recently?
so I think like one that really stands out is job titles,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm sure you've probably seen some of this too. So, what's a UX designer? What's a UI designer? What's a product designer? And I could check my feed and I could see like 3 different posts defining those roles 3 different ways, and they're all very authoritative sounding, as if like, hey, like I'm.
Mm.
So if you're a junior professional, or you're really trying to get in and you're trying to understand,
Mm-hmm.
posts explaining that like, well, UX designers, they only focus on like buttons and checkboxes. You have to be a product designer if you really want to think about the full experience. And
Oh, I would think the opposite was true.
yeah, and
But
so
yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so there's a lot of that on the portfolio side too. And we were, as you were talking about that, a lot of hiring managers giving advice to, here's what you need to have in your portfolio, and if you don't capture my attention in the first 2 minutes or 2 seconds or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
you have lost your opportunity to compete for this role. And
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of entry level designers, they may only have case studies from college, or maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
transitioning, and so they don't have that level of detail. KPIs,
Mm.
or
Sure.
Mhm.
Oh, that's something else that worries me a lot of times because when I'm interviewing people for roles, I'm supposed to ask, what's the impact? What was the impact of your project? And I've had people say, well, I worked on this thing for 6 months, but then it did not ship. It got shelved. So
right,
I have 6 months of work, including research
Mhm.
to show, but I don't have a business metric. Now, it would be extraordinarily easy for them to lie and to say, yep, it shipped, and here's how it
Yeah.
did, and we've got this much usage, and we had this much revenue gain, and we had this many clicks, because there's no way for me to verify that information. And so I feel almost sometimes when people do bring those numbers and stats in, I think, well, it's good that they're thinking about that and looking at that. But
Yeah.
honestly, most designers aren't in those weeds. They're not, you know, they're never going to get a copy of that
Hmm.
revenue report. And,
And
they
I
may not
think
have
back,
the
yeah,
tooling. Yeah, go ahead.
I think back to the last time I put a portfolio together, and this did come up for me because I thought to myself, okay, well, I have to have something in here that has like very concrete data. And that might have been something that I wouldn't have necessarily put in my portfolio, but because some of the other projects that maybe I was more proud of or had better designs for or more holistic thinking or strategic thinking didn't get to that level of having any sort of metrics or data associated with it in terms of impact to the business.
Hmm.
And so those ones maybe don't make it like it's high in the portfolio or don't get to be like the star of the show because I'm
Mm,
I'm you know I'm trading that off for something that maybe does. I'm sitting here thinking about that now and I'm like, yeah, I definitely did that just so that I could have something where I said, okay, this did have impact for the business.
yeah. Yeah. Because we're
And I
supposed to look at projects that shipped, and not like, hey, this was an independent thing I just did on my own, even if it's a better uh illustration of their skills, you know?
I want to see somebody's portfolio and I want to see only two things. One, I want to see things that shipped that are crap, like things that they
Mm,
had to like
are
just
you
like
sure?
yeah, no, I do. I want to hear the stories of how they had to fight for what they wanted and they didn't get it and there was no support for good design, or maybe even just like they didn't know at the time, what that things they know now, because that's like all good learnings. And then I want to see stuff that never got shipped that's like really awesome, where they could like think independently and dream big. Now that
Mm.
said, for our audience, I'm not a hiring manager and
Disclaimer.
I'm not even usually on interviewing panels, so
Mm,
don't take my advice. But
right.
that's what I would want to see.
Yeah. Sean, what do you think about all this?
well, and I think this is a great example of that idea of like where we've corrupted thought leadership. Because I think back to the early days where if and a lot of us, I think in our generation when we started, we were a team of one at our company, and so we're the ones with the boots on the ground trying to champion and advocate and educate. And one of those best practices that came out was this idea of showing, uh, value for a design decision. So, hey, we made this adjustment and it resulted in, X amount more click-throughs or traffic or sales or whatever in order to get the buy-in organizationally from our company to effectively do our work and get
Mm-hmm.
positioned. And that seems to have like evolved over time into you're not a UX designer unless you have that data. And the reality is a lot of us, organizationally aren't still supported. And so
Uh-huh. Yeah.
point, if your project got, axed 6 months in or 12 months in because of an org change or budget or, what have you.
A
uh,
new leader who thinks they know what to do next.
It's
exactly.
To me, this is the thing where when I hear a designer talk about they worked on something for 6 months and then it got put on the shelf, it actually makes me really mad because I think those resources, like you need to get a tighter loop between I'm gonna design something and I'm gonna ship it. Nobody in this day and age should be doing that really, really, really old-fashioned waterfall. Not saying that we don't do waterfall. I think we all still do it to some degree. But the idea of that someone has a project that has that they've been working on continuously for 6 months and that none of it ever shipped or saw the light of day, like what a
Mhm.
giant waste of resources. Like, why not just ship it anyway, just to see if it does anything? I mean, what on earth are they at that point? Are you even saving time and money um to shelve a project like that? I've had it actually not happen to me, but happen to someone on my team where they worked on like a widget for a dashboard And they fought,
Hmm.
like, people fought so hard for that widget. They wrote docs about the widget. The widget was going to bring in all this visibility, it was going to bring in all this revenue. And
Hmm.
then some new leader came in and was like, nope, that's not happening. And
Hmm.
all those reviews, all those meetings, all those iterations and back and forth, and the designer going back over and over and over again. And I'm just like, what a waste. What a waste of time. They could have been working on something else. Like that.
Another
Yeah.
example of that is like an acquisition. So I was at a company, wasn't my work that this happened to, but they were developing like a new product and within the company line of products and worked many, many months building prototypes, building, betas, alphas and betas and getting like initial users and all this stuff. And then the company just decided to buy the same, like a very similar product and acquire them instead. And it was told to these folks that like, well, all of your work like helped prove that this was a viable acquisition. But that
Mm.
at the end of the day, like how does that help the designer who spent all their time on a different product that isn't going to be the product that the company is going to go forward with?
Ouch.
Yeah,
Yikes.
really, really tough.
Ugh. So Shawn, I'm curious, you mentioned that you are still looking for your next opportunity, that you have been interviewing, you've been working on your, portfolio and your case studies. How is it going? What has been your experience with the job market? What has been your experience as a candidate with the companies that you've been able to talk to?
Yeah, I feel fortunate. I've been again following LinkedIn and in some other conversations. I get the sense it's really difficult out there for a lot of UX designers. I've actually been getting quite a few interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, with some of them, the process has been really drawn out. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a call, and then maybe 3 weeks later, we kind of follow up again. And
Oh
so,
my gosh, that's
yeah.
awful.
So I'm hoping, and then now that we're at the end of the year, I've already had, I had a couple this week, and they're like, we probably won't be able to get back to you with next steps until, after the first. So,
Hmm.
that's part of it too. Um, a lot of rejections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go into, I've got a folder where all my, correspondence, related to applications kind of have been stored. I don't want to count up how many no's I've gotten.
Mm.
But I would say I've probably over the last 3 months sent out well over 1,000 applications.
Oh my
Oof.
God. Okay.
And had one, so I have a former colleague from IBM who's a pretty high level at a large company in the Atlanta area, and I applied for a position or two there, and he gave me a referral. But he's like, look, when we put out one of these, we're getting 500 to 700 applications for
Oh,
that's what kind of need to know that you're competing against. And I
right.
think that's a lot of the like the no's that I've gotten back have just frankly said, we had so many applications, we actually don't know what to do with them. So don't
Mm.
take this as like you're
Hmm.
talented or you're not qualified. It's just more
Yeah.
of the reality of what we're dealing with. So
Holy
uh,
smokes.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that is discouraging. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that doesn't sound fun. I've definitely heard people talk about the hundreds. I haven't heard the thousands, but I don't even know at that point how you keep track anymore. Like it would
Yeah.
all just start to blur together.
I
Um,
don't.
yeah,
I
yeah.
literally I fire off an application and then I forget about it until a recruiter gets back to me and says, "Hey, we'd like to set up a call," or I see a message that, and frankly, a lot of these when I see the message come in, it say like, we're gonna consider other candidates. I don't even recognize some of the companies anymore that I've
Yeah,
applied to.
yeah.
But yeah,
What
I think you
about,
have to
I mean,
be
are
careful.
you open to kind of turning yourself into a freelancer slash consultant? Like, have you dabbled in that area at all?
I haven't. I have been looking at contract work, particularly on the federal side.
Mm-hmm.
of equation. That's kind of been kind of tough too, especially after the election.
Okay.
A
Right.
lot. Uh, very next day, I had, I think, three companies reach out that I was, in discussions with and say we're putting the position on hold.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a thing too. But no, I've tried to freelance earlier in my career. I didn't like chasing people for invoices, and
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
there was a
Right.
lot of stuff that it's just not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I have been more open to like a 1 year contract with a company, and at least going back to like 1099 kind of work.
Right.
So how are
Um,
you surviving all of this?
yeah.
Well, I have a very loving and supportive wife. Uh,
Yay.
so yeah, I mean, it's a severance package. You can, try to milk that a little bit. But patience wise, I mean, I've gone through reorgs a couple times, previously in my career. And so it's, I think you sort of have to be self-aware of where your strengths are and where your weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
are. My portfolio and my case studies were actually, I wasn't really well prepared to be out interviewing at this point. And so I had to
Mm-hmm.
invest a lot of time there and then, really take a hard look at, the relevancy of the work at this point in my career. And um, are there things that I did at the time that maybe I wasn't aware of that
Mm-hmm.
I could be leveraging more effectively now
Mm,
as I'm looking at, leadership level roles, and trying to retell the stories from the past.
Mm.
And then, yeah, and then really take a hard look at what I've done more recently and try to position that as best as possible. So
Yeah.
that's been where the
What
bulk has been.
So, you're not the only person in this boat, I'll tell you. I have a coworker who mentioned that their spouse is on the job market, has been interviewing and has been looking for, a while. Um, what advice would you have for other UX professionals that are in your same shoes right now who might be looking either for their first role or who, are going through a layoff and are looking for that next role? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say for those looking for their first role, um, and I actually I went to a awesome design professional event a couple days ago here in the DC area and was talking to someone who's looking to start his UX career and go back to school for some training there and making sure you're getting into it for the right reason is really the
Mm,
first thing. I think a lot of people a few years ago when the market was red hot, everybody was jumping into the field because that's where the salaries were, but they maybe weren't getting into the field because that was the right field for you to be in, um,
mm-hmm,
from either a mindset perspective or really a passion perspective.
mm-hmm,
So if you're now in UX and feeling like you are, well, what do I do now? The rug's been pulled out from under me. I think just making sure that you really actually are passionate about the work. That's going to come through your portfolio. It's going to come through your resume. It's going to come through when you do have that call. I think you really need to be able to make sure that people understand that yes, I didn't just get into the field because it was quick money. I got in because I actually really love providing value to people and
yeah. I mean,
um
I've talked to some people who are ready to step away from UX as their career path and are looking for new career paths. Do you feel like that's the case for you, that you're open to maybe a career path change at this point, having been in the field for so long?
yeah, I actually have been. So I actually started taking, I'm actually approaching the end of it, but I've been doing the project management certificate from Google
Okay.
through. And part of that was just a sense of I've sort of felt that there's been roadblocks to my ability to do great UX work in the past, and a lot of times it comes down to like a product manager who just is sort of kind of bumbling their way through the project. So, can I if I'm the project
I've
manager,
never
can I
had
actually
that experience. I don't know about you, Mick. Just
but
kidding.
so yeah, so I've thought about that. I've also been applying for like service design roles, and I haven't
Hmm.
that much in the past, but it's still human centered.
Hmm.
And so just trying to be maybe a little more varied in what it is I'm doing.
Right. Right.
I think I
I mean,
bumped
you've
into.
done a lot of things. Like that's one thing I observed when I was looking through your, your profile, your LinkedIn, and all your work experience was that you've done management, you've done design, you've done research, you've done, more visual graphic work. So, it seems like you have a lot of skills. Like, what are some of the things you feel like you're best at, where you really shine? And then what are some of the things you feel like you'd be okay to kind of leave behind?
Yeah, I'd be okay with leaving behind visual design at this point in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I just it doesn't excite me. Design systems have matured to the point where there's really not even a lot of creative freedom for
Mm.
at least like on enterprise level projects anyway,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
which is fine. Um, I've always sort of seen myself strongest as a problem solver. Um, Taking whatever our business challenges and what we think we're trying to provide to the market and making sure that we've got the right mental model and that we're really thinking and framing the problem the right way. Um, I've always, for whatever reason, like whenever I'm in a company and we're really looking at something, I've always had a different way of looking at whatever it is that we think the problem is, and and being able to simplify that to where we can actually take action. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always been for me, it's always been really rewarding to actually, that full cycle of I understand a problem, I understand a user, I put something better in front of them. I see the light bulb go off and that, and I get that validation that like, yes, like I sort of put the pieces of the puzzle together. And so I've worked with a lot of people who were they could only do research. And if
Mm.
have they don't have Google Analytics data, they don't have any context. And I've worked
Okay.
with just really strong visual designers. And if they don't have that design system, they can't Lego build a user interface.
Mm-hmm.
And I being able to kind of cross all of those dimensions and understand how all that comes together more
Mm-hmm.
holistically is
Yeah,
probably one where I've really I feel fortunate because I've sort of learned over the years not everybody has that ability.
for sure.
I've been thinking a little bit recently about how what you've been saying about how some of these things have evolved, to the point where we might not need as many designers, like developing design systems or solving interaction problems that kind of have been solved. Like at some point, like we know how to build a bike for a human, and we're not really gonna make a ton of like big, massive changes. Like we're not gonna bring back the penny farthing, in this analogy, like UX for web interfaces or app interfaces. Like I'm relating them to like the bicycle. um and we've tried some crazy things, and like we've pulled back, and like we have standards, and we have design systems, and we have ways of doing things, and maybe even we have more automated ways of doing some of the work that UX designers were doing maybe a decade or two ago. And it kind of makes me think about the kinds of things that we do contribute in some ways, like you were talking about, Sean, like the strategic part, the connecting the dots, the um, creating the mental models and the systems design of kind of like where we could move this experience forward to. And it kind of makes me think like, so then are we just having the same skill set and the same value and the same contribution to these companies, but we're not necessarily being called like UX anymore? Maybe it's something else, because this particular profession is more associated with kind of an emerging, digital era that we don't really have as much anymore. I don't know. It's just kind of just part of the um, part of what you were talking about made me reflect on some of those thoughts recently. Like, should we be looking for just strategy roles?
Mm.
Just strategy roles, type of a thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I remember earlier in my career trying to explain to people, that challenges with getting UX up and running in an organization. And I would say, if you're the first UX designer, there was someone already there doing UX work. It was a developer or a product manager. And I didn't know they were doing it, but someone was making those decisions. And I think we're maybe starting to come full circle where, I'm hearing of more UX practitioners moving into project management or product management.
Hmm.
And it's ultimately the skills that I think a lot of businesses wanted their product managers to have from the start, or that
Right.
many product managers want to have themselves
Right.
and don't. And so, yeah, I mean, in another 10 years, the meme on LinkedIn where it says that, the UX designer only does visual design work, that may actually be accurate at some point because we may end up coming full circle there.
Right,
Mm.
right. Well, obviously the job market is a UX horror story right now. Are there any other horror stories from UX that come to mind for you that you wanted to share with us?
Oh boy. Yeah, I wrote like 10 on my whiteboard over
Oh
here.
no. We're not going to
Oh.
get to all of them, or maybe
Like,
some rapid
which
fire.
one?
Yeah, rapid fire.
Yeah, like various levels of pain. I remember like early in my career, this one's a lot of these are actually more people process horror stories and less about the day to day.
Mm.
But one that was actually like an actual execution like story was my company. We were a joint venture of a number of companies, and so one of those joint venture partners we were creating a dashboard for, and this dashboard just tracked some they had like incentive programs for their customers, and this would allow them to kind of track the effectiveness of different activities. And so we had a new product manager, and nice guy, and I think he just kind of wanted to really show that he could take ownership of a project. And so he met with the JV partner and gathered requirements, and he had all of his meetings, and he eventually built this spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet essentially captured all the data, had some color coding to for something that's performing really well versus not, red and green and that kind of thing. And then um, was working with the development team to actually implement that. Now, I had no idea that a lot of this was going on. I was busy on another project. And at one point, I get summoned to like this crisis all hands meeting. So I go into like our largest conference room at the office, and there's probably 20 people in there, and all the full development team, managers, product manager, and the and so the spreadsheet is up on the screen, and they're like, we shared this with the client, and they completely rejected it, and we have to rethink how we can make this more usable.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so what did you guys build? And they go, this. And I go, well, that's the spreadsheet, but where's what you built? They had actually recreated the Excel spreadsheet in
Oh.
code as the user interface,
Oh
and then
boy.
handed that over to the client.
Wow.
Oh
So
Ouch.
boy.
it it was beautiful. It looked just like Excel. The thing
That's
with developers,
amazing.
you give them direction, like they can bang it out. But yeah, they literally took the Excel spreadsheet and made that. And so I
Oh,
had to
wow.
stop everything I was working on and spend about 2 weeks designing from scratch, like a dashboard that could then be used by this JV partner to
Oh my
accomplish what they
gosh.
needed. And we
Oh,
got there, but it was like a crisis situation
that
at
is
that.
wild. That is
Uh,
wild. They did it.
but
They recreated Excel.
Like sometimes things can be taken so literally if on handoff, like there was a use of a bold weight font just to indicate that like this is where the variable would be in the sentence, like the
Mm, right,
person's
right, right.
name or the person's product. And so they were using bold to identify that. And I was like, oh, I think that the engineer is going to think that you want that to be bold. Like, I still
Yeah.
think that stuff happens, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. I literally had that conversation today with a fellow designer walking through the interface where they were using the code name. of the project in the
Oh,
interface.
oh
And I was like,
no.
no, no, no. Like the customer can't see that. They will, they will think that I was like, your developer will absolutely code that in. Like, take
Yeah.
that out.
So if you're like, here, build this thing, here's the spreadsheet to like build it off of, like I could see how somebody might
Good
just build the
God.
spreadsheet
Oh
without
my
any additional
gosh.
like support or information or, direction.
Yeah. And I've had so many conversations over the years with designers where they would say, like, well, why do I have to create a mock-up for every single screen in this product?
Oh,
Shouldn't the developers just be able to interpret what we want with some,
Yes and
because
yes. I
yeah.
mean, yes and yes, because I think that is a judgment call for a designer working with a developer. If a developer is brand new to front end and they need that, then you do it. But if they don't need that, then don't waste your time and you can do a lot through hand waving. But it really depends
I,
on their skill.
yeah, and I think it's interesting because like and then you get into the kind of like next level with your manager who's like, why are you spending so much time on this? And it's like, well, I might need to spend the time on the, 17 different versions of this because of the type of hand holding that may be needed in this situation that isn't needed in the next situation, or in the next project that I'm working on.
Mm, yeah.
yeah. And I think if it's a net new project, I think you need to be a lot more explicit. If this is
Yeah.
if this has been out for 10 years and this is a minor update, and you've already got patterns well established, you probably get away with just, some basic requirements in a Jira's ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my thing has always been to the designers. They say, if you leave any ambiguity, the developer is going to fill it with what makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, comfortable with them doing that on the screen. If not, make a mock-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of get that at that point.
Yeah. I like that rule of thumb very much.
Well, Shawn, I guess I have one last question for you, and it's this. If you could send a message to the hiring managers out there who are hiring right now and looking right now, as someone who's on the other side, what would you want to say to them?
Um, you know, I, let's take the empathetic route. Hang in there.
Mm,
I think I think they've got a hard job right now too. Hiring isn't easy. Identifying candidates is tricky, and if you don't really have a great process yourself, that just adds more complexity on top of it. But there, I think hiring managers, um, by and large, are probably looking to do the right thing. They're probably not the ones on LinkedIn railing about bad portfolios. They're actually really looking for quality talent, and they've got a mountain of you know, people who
Yeah.
probably half of them are perfectly qualified for the role to sift through. So,
yeah.
um, I would say, just make sure that, as they're being empathetic to themselves, making sure that they're empathetic to, the people that they work with, and as much as they can. I know at some point HR kicks in, and systems kind of operate outside of that individual. But I think ultimately, if we're all sort of looking for the right thing, which is good quality candidates who can deliver really good value for customers, and do it for the right reasons, I think everyone will win in the end.
Thank you so much, Shawn. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
It was fun. Thanks.
Folks, if you need advice or sympathy for your UX career, we are listening. Write to us at survivingux@gmail.com. Bye bye. Surviving UX is hosted and edited by Jessamine Edwards and Meg Kramer. Our theme music is, among other things, the on-hold music for Cisco Phones, Opus Number 1, by Tim Carlton and Derek Deal. If you're going through a big career change right now, we have your back. Stay strong and don't forget to show yourself some empathy too.